then the last object was this glass vial. And this glass vial had the clue to where Mary's body was buried. Mummified body was buried. And the hint was, and Jesus' body isn't too far away. And it mentions that the resurrection is a hoax, the Vatican knows it, they're trying to cover it up, and so forth. Now, in the movie, they show you this body. It's covered with this cloth with the Knight Templar cross on it, and then they sneak into this cave near Rennes-le-Château, and they put down, I'm not sure exactly what it was, but they're able to cut this cloth, and guess what they found under it? This is Mary Magdalene. They found Mary Magdalene there. And I looked at that and said, I'll bet you that's plastic. I'll bet you that was made in a Hollywood studio somewhere, because that's not Mary Magdalene. This mummified body, if it is a body at all, could not be that of Mary Magdalene or any Jewish person for that matter. During the Second Temple period, the time of Jesus, Jewish people never mummified their dead. At the burial of Jesus, normal Jewish burial customs were followed. That's what John says. He's explicit about that. And one would assume the same thing would have occurred with Mary Magdalene's burial. Jewish burials entail letting the flesh decay, and after the year, the family gathers up the bones, place them in a bone box called ossuaries. This practice was called ossualigum, or secondary burial. Now, at the end of the movie, Bruce Burgess, who's the producer, he makes this statement: for the record, I do think it's possible that these discoveries, especially the chest and maybe even the tomb, were somehow placed there for Ben and us to find. That doesn't make this fake in any way. I played that over probably 10 or 15 times to make sure I got that right. That's exactly what he said. It just means that someone with an agenda wanted this material revealed. But who? Well, I could think of at least three possibilities. The first possibility is some secret organization, and in the movie it's called the Priory of Zion, which is a fictitious organization, by the way. Want to disprove the deity and bodily resurrection of Jesus, and will bump off anybody in the way of their agenda. And of course, there's always this, cloak and dagger thing going on in the movie, besides the scavenger hunt, and it really stretches the imagination. The second possibility is people want to sell books and movie tickets. Well, that's a distinct possibility too. That Ben Hamat fellow had a book that came out a couple months later. I haven't bought it yet. I'm not going to spend money on it. If somebody wants to donate a copy to ABR, I'm sure I'll be able to review it for you. And then they were selling movie tickets too. Fortunately, it was a flop. And fortunately, I had the DVD, and I had my review of it, which is up on the ABR website. Answers in Genesis put it up on their website. It's up on my website, and a few others. I'd like to think that people actually read the review beforehand and says, skip this flick, it's not worth seeing, and so forth. But they didn't sell. And the third possibility, and I think more driving, is Bloodline had the agenda. The message they were trying to get out, disguised as a serious documentary, is that Jesus is not God manifest in human flesh, and he didn't come back from the dead. That was the underlying message of the video. Of course, I think it's totally bogus, but anyway. So anybody want to buy the Brooklyn Bridge? I'll sell it to you really. I own it. You laugh. I own it. I'll sell any of you the Brooklyn Bridge if you want to buy it. Really cheap. Now, the last part is no resurrection. And this was the one that came out in 2007, the Jesus family tomb, so-called. Now, you can see the gentleman on the left is a naked archaeologist. You notice he's got clothes all over him. And the book itself, The Jesus Family Tomb. On Monday morning, February 26, 2007, now I generally do not watch NBC. All right? I heard the opening statement of Matt Lauer. I think it was the divine providence that I actually turned it to NBC. On the Today Show, it says, "Is this the tomb of Jesus? A shocking new claim that an ancient burial place may have housed the bones of Christ and a son. This morning, a Today's exclusive that could rock Christianity to the core." And I said, oh, here we go again. And I saw the bone boxes. This isn't new. This is the retread of the BBC from 1996. Fortunately, when the internet started going back and forth on this, I just retyped my article, updated a bit, and put it up right away. Because there's nothing new here. It was already out. The underlying premise of the book and documentary is that the family tomb of Jesus was discovered in Jerusalem and contained 10 ossuaries or bone boxes with bones of various members of Jesus' family, including Jesus himself and his son Judah. The other members of the family were Jesus' brother Yossi and his mother Mary. Now, in the BBC video, Yossi was Joseph, the father of Jesus. Now they're making it as his brother. And Mary, his mother, and Jesus' wife Miriam, who was actually Mary Magdalene, and another relative named Matthew. The book also claims that one ossuary went missing after the excavation and later surfaced on the antiquities market with the inscription, "James, the son of Joseph, the brother of Jesus." You've heard about that one too. All right? So at least 2 of Jesus' brothers would have been buried in the family tomb. That's the premise of the book, and here's the actual picture of the tomb. In March of 1980, a bulldozer exposed part of the Second Temple burial on the Dov Granar Street in the East Talpiot, south of the old city of Jerusalem. Fortunately, it was reported to the Antiquities Authority, and a salvage excavation took place. Now, 10 ossuaries were discovered in the East Talpiot tomb. 6 of them had inscriptions, again, Miriam, which they identified as Mary Magdalene, Yehuda, the son of Yeshua, that was Jesus' son, Matthias, which is Matthew, Yeshua, Jesus himself, Yossi, a brother of Jesus, but in the BBC one, he is the father of Jesus, and Myra, Mary, the mother of Jesus. I don't want to go into all the details in it, but the whole idea is bogus, to say the least. Now, James Tabor, who we met in the very beginning, had an interesting analogy on his website where he said, imagine a football stadium filled with 50,000 people, men, women, and children. This was an average estimate of the population of ancient Jerusalem in the time of Jesus. If we asked all the males named Jesus to stand based on the frequency of that name, we would expect 2,796 to rise. If we then asked all those with a father named Joseph to remain standing, there would be only 351 left. If we further reduced this group by asking only those with a mother named Mary to remain standing, we would get down to only 173. If we then asked only those of this group with a brother named Joseph, only 23 are left. And finally, only of these, the one with a brother named James, there's less than a 3/4 chance that even one person remains standing. And he mentions the professor from the University of Toronto who did this, and he says the figure of probability comes out to 1 in 600 that this was the tomb of Jesus. Now, there's one problem with this whole analogy. Jesus was not in a stadium. Jesus was resurrected from the dead. They totally dismiss the idea of the resurrection in the book. That's not a possibility for them. And again, as Scott pointed out in the very beginning, they deny the supernatural. Now, ABR happened to run into a fellow named Joel Kramer in Jerusalem. Great guy. Over there in faith, making videos. In fact, he's made several videos on Jericho with Brian in it. But he made a video called The Jesus Tomb Unmasked, The original title was something about the Jesus tomb's a hoax, and Simca threatened him with a lawsuit. And so he had to change the title because it was a little bit too close to home. But we do have a bunch of copies in the back room there. So after we're done here, right before lunch, run, don't walk. See Henry afterwards. He'll be glad to sell you these. He told me he only had 20, and if they're already sold out when you get there, if you pay it, he'll send it to you free and postpaid. But Joel interviewed the excavator, Amos Kloner, and the draft person, Shimon Gibson, and they said Simca is out to lunch, and other archaeologists, and demonstrated that the whole thing is clearly out to lunch. Now, what is the evidence for the resurrection? And there's abundance of evidence. First of all, the eyewitness account. The appearance of the Lord Jesus after the resurrection. And it lists a number of people in different circumstances, in different situations, and so forth. The Roman guards saw the angel of the Lord roll the stone away. They didn't roll it away to let Jesus out. He's already been resurrected. They rolled it away to let people in to see the fact that the tomb was empty. And Jesus made his bed before he left because it says the napkin was folded nice and neatly on the tomb shelf. The empty tomb. If they went to the wrong tomb, it'd be easy to go to the right tomb. But the tomb was empty. There was nothing there but the grave clothes. The disciples were reluctant to believe in the resurrection. So John tells us in John 20, verse 20. Then we see the lives changed of each and every one of the disciples. You look at Peter's life before the resurrection, and Peter's life in the book of Acts and in the epistles, 1st and 2nd Peter, he's two different people. What changed? The resurrection of Jesus Christ changed the way he lived. The miraculous confirmation of the disciples' claims in the book of Acts and Hebrews. And on the day of Pentecost, 3,000 people believed. What was Peter's main thrust? Fulfill prophecy and and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. That was the thrust of his message. 3,000 come to faith. And Peter says, look, when he quotes Psalm 16, this isn't talking about David. David's tomb is with us to this day. Go down the hill there. Go to David's tomb. Pay your shekel entrance fee. You can go in and see David's body still today. No, this isn't talking about David. It's talking about Jesus. The existence of the Christian church. The Christian church exists because of the bodily resurrection of Jesus Christ. And then finally, the lives and martyred death of millions of believers in the Lord Jesus over the century. You don't die for a lie. You die for the truth. In 1979, I was in Jerusalem studying, and I attended 4 lectures at the Albright Institute by Levi Rachmani. Levi Rachmani had just finished his doctoral dissertation on ossuaries and Jewish burial practices in Jerusalem. And the 4th lecture was on ossuaries, these bone boxes. And at the end of the lecture, Father Pierre Brenois of the French School of Archaeology was sitting there, and he raised his hand, and Levi acknowledged him as, yes, Pierre. And Pierre says, would Jesus' bones have been placed in an ossuary? And Rachmani's response was, yes, they would have been, but something unexplainable happened. Great answer. The best explanation for the unexplainable was given by the angel that rolled back the stone from the tomb. It is, he is not here, for he has risen, as he said. That's the best explanation for it. The resurrection, the bodily resurrection of Jesus Christ. Thank you very much.